my family, they would, I can't walk, so they had to carry me, and they would bring me from the bedroom in the morning and bring me out there and sit me down in that chair. And of course there was a library close, and my people all liked to read, and they would bring me a book or any book I'd want, and I could sit there and read. But you know, folk, I hadn't been there maybe a week or such a matter, maybe little, but I didn't look like this. Oh no, I didn't have a single hair on my head. I have a little dust cap that has a ruffle on it, and because there's just little short stubby hair all over my head, I was awful looking sight you ever saw. And my body was so dehydrated, my body's in such condition it couldn't get my hair to grow. So I'm still wearing those little dust caps they made for me over in a foreign country. You know, naturally I was so skinny, I looked so terrible, and I didn't know how to wear clothes anyway. All right, they'd bring me out and sit me down there, and I'll never forget, maybe a week, maybe 10 days had gone by, and one morning they brought me out, and I was there. I know I wasn't there more than 5 or 10 minutes, and two of my sisters walked in such condition they couldn't get my hair to grow. So I'm still wearing those little dust caps they made for me over in a foreign country. You know, naturally I was so skinny, I looked so terrible, and I didn't know how to wear clothes anyway. All right, they'd bring me out and sit me down there, and I'll never forget, maybe a week, maybe 10 days had gone by, and one morning they brought me out, and I was there. I know I wasn't there more than 5 or 10 minutes, and two of my sisters walked over to the chair, and they said, "Don't you think it's time for you to go back to the bedroom? I know something's wrong, but I don't know what's wrong yet." And do you know what was wrong? They had happened to look out, and they saw some of their friends driving up in front of the home. I don't say this boastfully because I'm not a part of it, but all of my sisters and brothers are college graduates. They all have wonderful educations. They're polished. I'm not polished. I spent my life in a convent, almost like a scrub woman. I've done everything that anybody could do. That's where my life has been spent. And I lived like a heathen. And naturally I wasn't polished, and they were ashamed of me. And they wanted to get me out of sight. And so they just picked me up and carried me back to the bedroom. I tell you, I wet that old pillow with my tears. Here, I've just found my people, and now they're ashamed of me. It wasn't my fault that I went into convent and they didn't let me get my education. It wasn't my fault they didn't let me do what I wanted to do. But the others stayed out and they got their college education. And now they're ashamed of me, and nothing can hurt you worse than that. Oh, the tears that I shed. All right, it went on and on and on and on. And because I was in such a terrible condition, I was in that home for quite a while. And you know, they were worrying about me. Well, one day, through medical science, of course, I began to get stronger, and I began to walk. And when they found I could walk maybe the length of this room right here, you know what my sister did? They went to the telephone, they called a beauty salon, and they made a standing appointment every Friday morning. They'd go take me down to the beauty salon, and they were going to have them to put hot oil packs on my head. Now I understood some of it, and they thought it would help my hair to grow. All right, they did, but the first time they took me down there, and the minute that heat hit my head, I went out just like a light. I'm not well, they shouldn't have done it, and I cried so hard. But the next Friday they took me back, and I go out like a light again. And they kept right on taking me back, and on and on and on. It seemed like they didn't have a bit of feeling. But you know, through medical science, and I believe God had a hand in it, and those hot packs, yes, I believe it all helped. One day my hair started to grow, and God gave it back to me natural curly, and I think I was the happiest woman in all of the world. And it was possibly about 6 inches long at this time. And you know what? I was so proud of it. And it was just about 6 inches long when they brought me to church this time, when I come up and got the Holy Ghost. But you know, I was sitting right over there, and when my hair began to grow, and I didn't have to wear those silly little caps anymore, well, my folks began to buy me very expensive clothes. They began to dress me up so it looked like the rest of the family, and on and on. And so I had on a light pastel pink dress. It was very expensive. And you know what? I sat right over there that very night. I looked over here, and I saw the dust on the floor. It's a board floor. And I said, they don't need to think I'm going to kneel down on that dirty floor, not with this dress on. And more than that, I saw some of the women touch some of those on the head. And I tell you right now, I don't want anybody putting their hands on my head either. I didn't want any of my hair. Oh, I'm proud. I come of a proud family. Oh, I have to keep it under the blood all the time, I can assure you. But anyway, that's what I was thinking over here. But don't you know, folk, when I come to the altar that night, I'd rather come up and shake Justice out his hand. And I fell on my knees. I forgot about my hair. I forgot about my dress. I forgot about everything. I need the Holy Ghost. And God so marvelously filled me with the baptism of the Holy Ghost that, oh, God knows, Charlotte. And He let me stay on my knees maybe 10 minutes. And what did He do? God laid me right out there, right flat on my back on that dirty floor with that beautiful dress on. And I laid there one solid hour and a half, they told me. And there a refining is going on. God's burning out all of the dross. God's burning out everything that's unlovely. God is changing Charlotte. Oh, God knows all about you. You're not going to cover up a thing if you come clean before God. And there I laid. All right, now when the time come, the Spirit of God began to lift, and you know what I did? I began to cry. And first, I didn't say anything out loud. I'm talking under my breath, but I'm saying, oh God, I said, it's wonderful what you've done for me. But God, you know, I have a brother that's an ordained Roman Catholic priest. And I said, my God, I want you to save him, and I'm going to lay him on the altar. And I called him by his name, and I said, God, save my brother at any cost. And then I said, God, you know my father. I'm going to lay him on that altar. He needs God. And I give the Lord his name. And then I laid my mother on and told God she was so horribly paralyzed, and I laid her on the altar. Then I lay all the rest of my brothers and sisters, there's 8 of them, I laid them on the altar, and I said, God, save them at any cost. Remember, I'm a baby in the Lord. I don't know very much. I'll never do that again, but I didn't know any better then. And folk, you know, down through these 24 years, I've had to see some of the most horrible sights that eyes can see. I've seen everything in my family. I've seen deaths that are astounding. Oh, but I laid them on the altar. In a few moments I'll be telling you, there they are on the altar. But you know what I did? Then after I'd talked to God, I turned around like that and I got up. And the aisle is just as big as that. The pews were pews, not stairs, heavy pews. And you know, I thought, well, I'm just going to go on out to the car. And I thought I'd start down that aisle, but there wasn't enough room. I couldn't get through to save my soul. The seats were in the way. In other words, I'm so drunk on the power of God I can't walk. I just fell from one seat to the other. And my patient and some of the women come over and got a hold of me. And they took me out of that building. They know where I want to go. And they took me out and put me in my patient's car. We have 3 miles to drive. I'm speaking in that heavenly language all that 3 miles. And when they got me home, I told you last night my patient's home is built upon a high terrace. There's 20 steps leading up in the front to get up to the front. Oh, they got me out of the car. They got me up those steps, and they got me inside. And then they were at the edge of the living room, and they turned me loose. I've never seen so much furniture in one house in my life. There just wasn't anywhere to get through. I'm so drunk on the power of God I couldn't get through the living room. I tell you, I couldn't do it. All right. They saw what was happening. They got a hold of me. They took me through the living room, the dining room, and the kitchen. And then they saw what was wrong. Of course, they should have known in the beginning. And they knew I was so drunk on the power of God. And you know, those people were afraid to let me go down those stairs. I want to get to the basement. That's where I'm going. And they took me down in the basement. And then they knew I wanted to be alone with the Lord down there. And they left me there, and they went upstairs and went to bed. I spent another night in the basement. All night I'm down in that basement. Just the Lord and I. I'd like to say to this congregation, I've never been on a dance floor in my life. I don't know how to dance. I don't know anything about it. I was a Roman Catholic, of course, and most Roman Catholics dance and drink and smoke and do everything they're big enough to do. But anyway, you know, my father and mother were disciplinarians and very strict on the children. And we had a big recreation hall right next door to the Roman Catholic Church, right across the road from my father's home. And let me tell you this, my oldest brother was 18 years of age before I went in the convent, and I like 3 months being 13 years old. I'd like to see my brother go to that dance hall. Never. My father never permitted it. No, 18 years of age, not one of we children ever went inside of that building. Why? Because the priest dimmed the lights and he served near beer to those kids, and my father would not permit us to go. I've never been on a dance floor. I know nothing about the dance, but oh, I learned to dance that night. I did. I said, I learned to dance that night, the Lord and I. The Lord was my partner. I tell you, I danced in the Spirit. I danced all over the building that night, all over that basement. In fact, I danced most of the night down there. And then you know what I did? All right, along about 6 o'clock in the morning, I wasn't saying a word. I walked over there, and there's a chair right under the stairway there. And I went over there, and I sat in that chair, and I had my hands folded laying in my lap. And you know what I'm doing? I'm just waiting to hear somebody getting up upstairs. And I waited quite a little while, and then I heard footsteps, and the next thing I heard, remember, I haven't had a bite of food to eat for about 5 days. I lost my natural appetite. I lost the natural sleep. Oh, it was pitiful, and I couldn't lose no weight because I was too skinny. They were worrying about me. All right, I heard my patient come to that door, and she was worrying about me, and she called down, and she said, because she didn't hear any sound, and she said, Charlotte, don't you think you should come upstairs and get something warm to drink? Well, that's intended to answer her, and I opened my mouth to answer her. Did you know God took the English language away from me? I can't speak one word of English. I answered that woman in tongues, and they brought me upstairs, and all day long the saints were coming and going, and every time I opened my mouth, I can't say a word of English. Everything is in tongues. Oh, God gave me an experience. God knew that I was going to give this testimony. God knew that I had needed everything that God could give me, because I'm all over this country giving this testimony, I tell you. And then that night they brought me to church. Oh dear. They set me down over here in the middle aisle on this side. And you know, they passed out the songbooks, and then a song leader announced the songs. And oh, listen, folks, they passed one to me. I'm so full of the Holy Ghost, I'm about the happiest person in all the world right now. And you know, when they started to sing, well, I opened my mouth and I thought I was going to sing, but I sang every song in tongues. I can't sing one single word. 3 or 4 songs, not a word of English. No, sir. For 2 days and 2 nights, I never spoke a word of English. Nearly scared me to death. I didn't know if I'd ever speak English again. I was afraid because I don't understand it. I walk by faith every step. I believe God. Everything that taught me and everything that Bible said, I believed it. And I reached out and accepted it from God. And that's why God gave to me and done for me what He did. Why? Because I believed Him and accepted it. And God will meet you the same way if you just let God. Oh, it was really, really wonderful. All right. Now I have all of my people on the altar. And I mean, they're on that altar. And I said, God, I'm going to leave them on the altar and save my people at any cost. Now, for just a few moments, I want to say this to you. 3 nights before the revival meeting closed that I was saved in, 72 people received the Holy Ghost in that revival. 3 nights before the revival meeting closed, when my father and those 2 priests went back home 650 miles from where I am, my father had an attorney to notify me that I'm cut off from my family. He wanted me to change my name and not use the family name. He said I brought reproach and disgrace upon the family name, upon the Roman Church. And more than that, he told me that I was disinherited from the family. I would never receive a penny. My father's a wealthy man. I would never have anything. Why? Because I walk down an aisle like that and give my heart to God. I'd rather have Jesus than all the wealth my dad has. You can't buy what I have. You can't beg it, you can't borrow it, you can't steal it. You're going to come by the way of the cross to receive this. And it'll cost you the whole world. Don't you ever forget it. And I'd rather have it than all the money you have, or all of you put together. I have something real. I have peace in my soul. I know where I'm going to spend eternity. But my heart was aching. Why? I'd come out of the convent of poverty, and I was past middle age. You can imagine how scared I was. And I tell you, folk, I didn't know if I was going to get well, so I could work. And on, and I thought, who's going to help me? Who's going to do anything for me? I was scared. Don't you ever think I was? All right. 3 nights before the revival meeting closed, come to church one night, and I walked up on the front steps. Pastor was standing out there, and he handed me a telegram. And when he gave it to me, I opened it and read it. What do you suppose it said? This is what it said. Some member of my family sent that. After they told me never to come home again, they never wanted to see me again, they never wanted to be part of me again. Well, here's a telegram saying my father died on Friday, and his funeral would be the following Monday. Oh, I was scared, but my heart was broken. I know Dad's lost if he died. I know that. All right, I was sure of that, because I know my father. All right, I was so frightened, but I was too fearful to go home. I was afraid to go. I went down in order to reach the flowers for my father's funeral. I didn't go home. Thank God I didn't. All right, now the revival meeting is closed, and Sister Nyla is closing that revival, going into Chicago, Illinois for her next revival. But she had said to me, now she knows a little bit about me. All right, I told her I had just bought enough furniture about 7 or 8 months previous to this. I had bought enough furniture to furnish a 3-room apartment. I didn't have any home, you see, and I wanted a place where I could go. I got so sick of being in the dormitory at the hospital because some of the nurses drank, and I didn't like it, and I didn't like a lot of things. I wanted a place where it could be quiet when I go off duty and I could be with the Lord. Oh, folk, I furnished those 3 rooms just like I wanted. It was beautiful, and I could come home. But you know, there's something about it. I learned these things through the hard way. I'd come home, I'd come off duty about 7 o'clock in the evening, and my apartment was a 9-apartment house, very large house, sitting up on a high hill. I could look down over that big city, and the lights were very beautiful. I would stand in my French windows in it, come straight down to the floor. I would stand there and look down over that city at the beautiful lights, and with the tears running down my face. I'm the loneliest person in the world. Oh, the tears I shed. I'm so lonely, I thought I'd die. Now, I wouldn't have had to be lonely. I could have dated some of those interns that begged me for dates. I could have gone to some of their wild parties, but I didn't want to. I saw all the sin I wanted to see in the convent, and I didn't want any of these things. Oh, yes, these things will happen. I could have gone many places, but I wouldn't go because I knew what would happen.